I first met John when I met up with the Inveraray District Pipe Band in Virginia for the
Mm.
first time. So John, you joined that year, or are you even further back than that?
I'm slightly further back. I joined in 2014.
Whoa. So epic. John's epic Inveraray PB lifer. So we've played in Inveraray a long time. And John isn't a great composer. And I remember one day, John, I was panicking earlier because I thought that maybe you handed this to me before COVID. But then I was doing some research online, and thank God, no. But it was like 2023. John was like, "Hey, here's a copy of my new book that's coming out. You have to do something about this and do something with the dojo." And it never happened because I'm a bad person. But we're finally getting around to doing it. And so I have this thing here called John Juice Pipe Suites, and it's a USB stick. The problem is if I eject it, I think it'll close it off of my computer, but it'll be worth it because it's the coolest bagpipe book I've ever seen.
Thanks very
Uh,
much.
in the sense that this is what it looks like right here. This is
Hang
this
on,
is
let me spotlight you.
this is John's book right here. I think that,
Ooh.
and by the way, if I hold it, you can see it says pipe suites. Cool. And it opens up like this. It took me about half an hour to figure out how to open it up, but it opens up. I'm just kidding. It opens up very easily, and it opens up like this. It's a little USB stick, and then you can just plug it in your old computer like that, and
It was
all
a
of your.
puzzle first and then a tune book.
Yes, exactly. And then so you can do it like that, and then it just opens up the entire book, and the book has got. It's like a complete PDF book there, and then it's got some recordings as well of the tunes, which is really cool. Like you in a normal tune book, you don't get that. Am I right about this, John? Like the demo tracks, right?
Yep.
And then it's also got a lot of the suites. It's got all of the individual parts broken out as well, which is really cool in this because that can be a challenge. So when you want to play the pipe suites, it can be hard to sight read the music and hard to print out scores that are many pages long when all the piper needs is a single part. So the individual parts are all on there too. It's very cool. And it's been a little while since you've released this, John. How has it gone? Have you sold a few?
Yeah, I managed to sell a number. I released my first book in lockdown, and that did really well because it was in the middle of lockdown. The second book, because it was more of a suites book, because I think you would need multiple players to play it, it maybe didn't sell as well, but I still managed to get orders from the States, Australia, parts of Scotland, and various parts of Europe as well. And the bagpiping community in Scotland is really it's small. It's really like lovely and family like. Everyone knows each other, so I managed to get it to the major retailers as well. So yeah, it's gone really well, and I've had a lot of really good feedback from a lot of people that said that they've enjoyed it. The main bit of feedback that everyone liked was the fact that it was a USB stick. They just thought it was dead interesting. i,
Yeah.
I can't take full credit. Chris Armstrong from Scottish Power, Pipe Major of Scottish Power, he actually did it first with his book Retradition, and I asked him about it, and he said that the company he dealt with were really it was really straightforward, and they were super user friendly. So decided to go down that route rather than printing something that was potentially going to be that thick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really proud of the product, and yeah, I had plenty of orders and a lot of good feedback, which is great.
Yeah, it's pretty
How,
nice.
how many tunes are in this book, roughly?
So there's 11 suites, and it's like a pipe band suite. So traditionally, or in the classical world, a suite is a collection of dances. So if you take the Bach cello suite, or the Shostakovich piano suites, or some of the other classical suites, or the Nutcracker suite by Tchaikovsky, it's a collection of dances where you would have a short dance stop. That's traditionally what a suite is. And I feel like a suite in pipe band terms is through composed piece of music that lasts anywhere between 3 minutes and up to some of them could be up to 11 minutes, similar to a medley, but more like one complete piece. So there's 11 of them, and I wanted to do a demo track because I've had some books where they've had suites, and I'm like, I'm sure this sounds great, and I'm sure it's a really cool piece of music, but quite hard to hear exactly what it would sound like until you go to an SFU concert and you go, oh, that's that Mark Saul suite that I came across. That's really cool. I'll maybe have a go at that. I wanted that experience to happen earlier. So yeah, 11 suites. All I think the shortest one's maybe about 2 or 3 minutes, and the longest one's about 11 minutes, and anywhere in between.
Very good. I
Very
remember
cool.
that we did the Night in That Land at the Inveraray concert. That's not part of this, but I remember being impressed by that, and definitely representative of the kind of music that you do. What do you think? What's your approach to doing these things? What are your influences, and what are people going to get out of playing some of these tunes?
I think the approach, now that I've written a number and I've listened to a lot, the approach now is to be able to write and each part be its own kind of thing that wouldn't necessarily work by itself. I remember at school, we learnt the steam train to Malig. It was brilliant. And my mum and a couple other family members would say, I'll play that one. And I'm like, that piece doesn't work, or it works fine ish as an individual piece or for a soloist. But the real effect of it is either a pipe band or a quartet. So the idea, the approach behind it is to give each part its own individual line for it to be entertaining for both the player and the listener, and it wouldn't necessarily work without any of those components. The main kind of influence I took from a lot of that kind of writing, well, to get started, was like Mark Saul obviously did a lot of really cool things. Doogie Campbell has written a few. One of the groundbreaking pieces for me was Learning to Fly, which is on Lauren McDougall's album, which is absolutely beautiful. It really changed my idea of how to compose. A little bit of Lincoln Hilton, and then at university and at school, I studied Bach chorales, species counterpoint, and figured bass. And that was all about tension and release between different parts. I always wanted to try and do that with the bagpipes. So I've studied a lot of fugues by Bach, Shostakovich, that kind of thing, and then tried to influence or try and recreate that with bagpipe music, but using the idioms that we know, like jigs, reels, hornpipes, and whatever. And even maybe looking at trying it with a pibroch if possible. I've tried a couple of things. It's not quite worked yet, but I'm working on it. And I think to answer the main question of the approach is to try and find polyphony so that it's not just like tune melody, or sorry, tune accompaniment, because we've all been there in bands or ensembles where the tune is wonderful, but then you're just playing the harmony player could just be playing blocks, and sometimes that's totally necessary. But as a player, sometimes this is just filler. And a lot of violists, a lot of my violist friends say to me, it was like sometimes they hate playing the viola because it's just harmony filler, and that's not what it should be. They're all saying utilize the instrument because it is that kind of middle baritone range that can be really exciting. So the approach is to just make it as interesting as possible for everyone that's involved. And in terms of influences, I wrote them down just to make sure. So like we got taught by Hamish Napier, who did a lot of similar types, or like was influenced by a lot of his writing. He did traditional flute writing, like Irish flute writing, but a lot of the moving part stuff. John Metcalf, he does the strings for Coldplay, but he's got his own minimalist albums that are really good. The Fretless, which is a string quartet, a kind of folk string quartet that have all the moving parts. Shostakovich and Bach, Botchus 8, and just a couple other guys. Like I said, Doogie Campbell and Lauren McDougall and Mark Saul being kind of the big early hitters, if you like.
Cool.
Cool.
When you write these suites, it's probably just you just take like a melody, right? And then all you do, this is something I feel like the people should know. All you do is you just take that, and then 2 notes down is the next part, and then 2 notes up is the other part. I'm making a joke, but it seems to me like the way that you're talking bagpipe music and harmony and so on. It's really progressed from. Now, John, you won't remember this because you're too young, but like when I first started, yeah, it was basically like either why don't we try 2 notes up, and like if that works, and that's really where the world seemed to be. I'm sure that's not really true because Mark Saul was out there doing his thing, and but
it was very common to hear that in lots of bands. Oh, just play 2 notes down and be fine.
Yeah. So what do you think, John? What's your take on like how things have moved forward? Now you're talking about being influenced by Shostakovich and minimalism and so on. How do you think things have changed for pipers?
I think the main thing that has changed is pipers are, it all stems from pipers being like, we do piping and that's that. And it's like pipers now are going to the conservatoire or studying music at high school and being influenced by all these people and then picking up piano. And I know for a fact there's a number of bagpipers that were at the conservatoire that are playing piano and they understand chord progressions. And when you understand the chord progressions, that it's not just that harmony isn't just 1 note up, 2 notes up, or 2 notes down. Yes, it can be that, but actually what you're doing is you're trying to create a chord, and then they learn the sequence of chord 1, 4, and 5 as the primary chords, and then 2, 3, and 6 being secondary chords, and then the seventh being its own kind of weird, not weird, but interesting thing. People are learning about that, realizing that how chords work, and then they learn inversions of chords, and then they realize, oh, actually, that's 3 notes down, but it still works. Why does that work? Because it's part of the selected chord that you chose for that line of melody. So, for example, if you're in D major, a D major chord is D, F sharp, and A, okay, regardless of what instrument. You can then play that A at the bottom and it becomes an inversion, but it's still the same chord and it sounds right. And ordinarily, a piper 50 years ago would have said, I'll go 2 notes down, that'll work. But B doesn't work in D major because it's not part of the chord. And I think pipers are starting to learn about chord progressions or getting more familiar with that and understanding how that all works. And take someone like Craig Muirhead, who's done a lot of arranging. Before he was in Inverary, he was in Scottish Power, did a lot of arranging there. And he's a grade 8 pianist. And he arranged Queen Elizabeth II Salute. And I listened to it recently, and he hits every single type of chord there is
Craig is
in
sort
there.
of he's an alien from another planet. Yeah. Like he's great because you're right, John. That's right. That Craig is so great because he understands piping and he understands music and he fuses the two really well. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Craig.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things. And that's where we're at. And we're getting, I can muddle around on the piano, but there are loads of composers like myself who don't play piano, but are starting to understand and be educated on proper chord structures and orders. And because of that, we're just gradually coming up to the same level of other composers that have that knowledge of harmony who aren't necessarily bagpipers. And then when you understand those structures, those limits, then you've got more room to be creative. If you've got a blank canvas and you're like, anything could happen, it could be great or it could be a pile of dirt. But when you've got those limitations and you follow some guidelines, you go, if those rules apply, how can we either mend them slightly or break them in a way, if we like? And something that I tried exploring in those suites is sometimes there was always like in like junior pipe bands or lower grade pipe bands, it's all 2 notes next to each other doesn't work. And it's actually, why is that not a chord? Like an E and an F sharp, why isn't that? That is a chord because a chord is 2 notes being played simultaneously.
Love that.
And now we're hearing Scottish Power did Castle Dangerous and they had a suspended chord resolved down to D. And I've heard older generation pipers say, oh no, that's a dissonance. And it's like, yeah, but dissonance, and then it resolves. And that's what music is.
You still get that was the big thing, John, this year with our new medley that we did this year at the Worlds. That was the big thing you could hear kind of like with some of the other bands. Oh, the chords they're using, it's just too much and too much suspension and they're trying to be too fancy. And that was like, that's still a criticism, right? It's like you can be creative, but not too creative because that would be bad. You can't, we don't want to hear anything like that actually challenges our points of view. You could still get that vibe sometimes. However, that's right, John. I think I agree with you 100%. So the bagpiping silo, right? It's not really so much of a silo anymore, and people are. I would say that now. I think if you wanted to be a serious bagpiper, that would be impossible without understanding chords and chord progressions, and without experience playing with other instruments and soaking in other styles. Like the age of a serious piper being someone who can win a gold medal, right? It's not that anymore. Gold medals are still awesome, but it's cool to see that. I don't know.
You certainly couldn't be grade 1 pipe major or pipe sergeant or part of the musical lead without that sort of information. You wouldn't be relevant.
I also think that's true of teaching as well. It's hard to be a serious bagpipe teacher anymore unless you have at least a basic awareness of all these things. So that's so exciting. It's pretty cool.
Sure. And with the teaching stuff, if you can produce, if like you have a slow air, a really basic slow air, beginner slow air, and then you're able to harmonize it properly and make a good job of it, I think that can get students psyched as well. And some of the kids I've spoken to, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this is the harmonies for a tune that we've learned. And they're kind of like, can you explain how this works? Because it's really satisfying. You can listen to that all day and it's like, yeah, it's just a suspension, resolve kind of thing. And going back to what you said about being a pipe major or a musical leader of sorts, all of the kind of guys that are and up through the ranks, if you like. They're all listening to all sorts of, not just different types of bagpiping, but all sorts of different genres and cross genres of music. And you can pick up dribs and drabs. And one of my mates who's a plumber, who's had a leadership role before, has managed to pick up dribs and drabs, but you can tell he doesn't quite have the understanding. But he showed me something and he was kind of like, can you explain this? And because I was able to explain it, he was then able to write harmonies a lot better. That's what I'm trying to get at, is you can pick up really cool things of harmony and writing from drips and drabs, but unless you totally study it and give it a really good bash with someone who knows how these chords work, then it can be trickier and it's not as convincing. And you can hear it in the music sometimes.
You can definitely hear it in the music, and you can also hear it when whoever arranged the music wasn't quite with the program yet. And it's not to say that it's bad, but you're like, oh, we're not quite missing the opportunities. Like maybe in like a tune that doesn't have any C sharps or F sharps in it at all, right, John? But in the harmonies, there's plenty of C sharps and F sharps. It's, ooh, that's not quite right. That's not quite right. And anyway, that's really cool. I put a link in the Zoom chat for everybody if you're interested in John's pipe suites. They're pretty darn cool. I haven't, but I want to load it on my phone so I can listen to some of these in the car. But they're pretty cool. And then, of course, all the music is right there. What's the software? Is it a good old MuseScore that you did them on?
No, it's Sibelius.
Sibelius.
Yeah, that's what we were taught in school. So that's just what I got used to. Me and the bagpipe teacher at the school were really gunning to get P Master Pro installed. And in fairness, the school did their best, but we're just, I don't know, neither of us could really hack how to download it or where, like, how it was going to work. So, yeah, ended up having to persevere with Sibelius, but there's just so many features on it, and it's so cool to kind of experiment. I think I did one which was like bagpipes in Celeste for fun, just to see what it would sound like. And yeah, it's just great having that software where you just got all these different instruments that you can't necessarily pronounce or know what they sound like. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, someone was asking for a snippet. Okay, so let me do that. Let me share my screen. By the way, I'm on my old computer today, so hopefully this doesn't like badly backfire on us. I'm just going to share this screen. This is John's website right here, by the way. Woohoo, nice website. And then here's the book. Everybody seeing it? Yeah, so there's a bit it's almost like a book. If you had a really nice printer, you could print yourself a book if you wanted to.
Or just put it on a tablet.
Although it's in the A4, you need an A4 tablet though.
I
think also, yeah, if you hover the mouse over the titles, it can take you straight to the suite.
Oh, nice. Oh, I was just looking at this one.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, the slowness of my computer is responsible for this. But yeah, here we go. Yeah, and there you go. There's your suite. So it's right there. It's all happening. And then, so for example, and then here is, if I do this, we will hear.
Yep.
John, who did you get to play this? Sounds amazing.
There's my good self. We trick shot
it's
there.
John himself. Amazing. Okay, sorry, I got distracted. That was my fault. I don't know what happened.
You scrolled on the, yeah.
So anyway, here, I'm going back. We were somewhere around here. Nice. Got a little, what would that be? F sharp minor chord in there, maybe, or something.
Hmm.
Nice.
That's right.
Sneaking it in. Right here.
There.
Your
Yeah.
F sharp, IA, and your C. Mind
Yeah.
blown.
So that's actually what you would call. Oh, I was going to say it's interrupted cadence, but it wouldn't be because that's 5 to 6. No, 1 to 6. 5 to 6. Yeah. Just trying to get too fancy for myself. That's what I get. It's not that. Yeah, so it's just chord 6, but that's what I mean. So like you would never think necessarily F sharp and C together. And that might not be the best interval, but the melody's an A. So that would be F sharp A C.
Wouldn't it be the third? Wouldn't it be the 3 chord if we're in the key of D? F
Yes.
sharp.
Apologize, yes.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, regardless, John, it sounds cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
And there's 10 more of those where that came from, everybody.
And that is not to boast, but that is the shortest one.
That's actually why I decided to make it the example here today, John, because that music file is 5.6 megabytes, but there's one that's 47.5 megabytes.
Nice.
Oh, it's a wave file though, so maybe that's why it's so large.
I was going to say, is that a lot?
No, it's not. No, it's not. Okay, everybody. So,
And
John's thing,
wait a
check it
minute.
out.
You've got an album that just released too, John? Is that what I'm
Yeah.
reading?
I've actually got it right here. Yeah, that's it there.
Oh man, guys, John, got to go to John Jew's website for all your Christmas shopping.
Excellent.
That'd be-
And what's on the new album? Give us a quick rundown. Just
So
sorta,
this
what
this
are we
album,
listening
so,
to?
so it's called, and that's the Gaelic for Marches. So there's 10 tracks, and all 10 of them are based on different idioms of march. So the first one's a 5/4 march, second one's retreat marches, and then third one is a suite, which is a 4/4 march, 2/4 marches, 6/8 marches, a set of English style marches, and then a 9/8 march, a 15/8 march, and then a slow march, funeral march type thing, and then a Pibroch by Donald MacLeod at the end.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a couple of tracks in there that I've started writing a couple more suites since the publication of that book. Hopefully, in a couple of years' time, I might release suites 2, which would be the exact same format as the green USB stick. Hopefully, a dozen suites in there, and a couple of the suites from the album will feature on that. So the main suite on there is a tune called "The Ruins of Guyland Castle," which is a 4-minute suite based or a 4/4 march, and it's using all the elements of different. There's a development section which is based on the tune. I double the length, then I halve the length, and I play them together. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to write. So that's what the album is. It's there. It's on the website as well, and it's an exploration of being able to do an album based on one idiom.
Very good.
Very cool.
Very cool. Check that out. One of the things that we talk about at the dojo all the time is variance. So when we're learning how to play the pipes, you can pick your 1/2/4 march for the whole year and just do that 2/4 march over and over again. But what's going to make you a lot better is just exposure to a wide amount of different kind of things. And if this kind of thing intrigues you, and if you like thinking about harmony, man, that would be, even if you're not like an expert player like John, to work your way through these suites and learn the different parts and think about them and enjoy it. It could be pretty cool. Which brings me to my next thought, John. We should get these suites on our Dojo U interactive player, so that people can play along and change the tempo and do the different parts, and then you could promote that. We could do a
Sure.
we could do a collaborative. Have you seen our interactive player? It's pretty cool.
I've seen bits and bobs of it. Yeah, yeah. Looks great. Is there one of someone doing the rejected suitor?
Oh yeah, probably. I think
Yeah,
we did
man.
that.
If I had that when I was a junior, man,
Yeah, it's
I'd have been
crazy,
here
right?
10 years ago. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And it just, especially if you can slow it down. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't start doing things like that until I was maybe at university level. Slowed
Mhm.
things down and really tried to understand a bit more about technical implications. So yeah, I'd be right up for that. Right up for that.
Yeah. Okay. This has been great. And I hope everyone has made their way over to John's website. But we now have to transition to what people thought they were coming for today, which is we have questions. So at pipersdojo.com/ADA is where people need to go to submit a question. And then, John, for your awareness, it all goes in there and then people vote on their favorite questions. And then we address the questions in order. And unlike our other classes through the week, even if we could care less about the questions, we are obligated to answer them, like even if they're really boring and not interesting.
No boring or stupid questions with me.
Yeah. And John, we're happy to have you here, and maybe you can help us answer some of these questions. By the way, the first question with 10 votes, I'm not comfortable with this question. It says AD. It says AD. That's probably me. AD said last week, online lessons are much better. I don't remember saying that. And last week I was out of town, so this can't be right. AD said last week, online lessons are much better. I never said that. But okay, if my tutor won't do in-person full pipe sessions, should I bail and just work on bagpipe freedom? I don't understand this question. Someone help me understand the vibe of this. Carl, what do you got?
Oh, I don't know. I think this stems from a conversation. The question's a couple weeks old. And if I remember correctly, this stemmed from a conversation of there's many things we can do really well teaching bagpipes on the internet. One of those things that's not as easy is those moments where you might want to have somebody like help you with your pipes, make those adjustments in person with you. And so I think we inferred from that is that with my in-person lessons, man, I should be up on the pipes working with the teacher because that's going to be better use of my time considering what is available and what works really well in other learning platforms. So should I bail on my in-person teacher because they're not willing to play pipes?
Oh, they can't play pipes in their private lessons with their teacher?
That was my understanding of this.
That's strange. John, have you ever heard of that? Private lessons where they don't play pipes?
No.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I would definitely question my instructor as to why we won't be playing bagpipes in the bagpipe lesson.
I think sometimes there's a one-off. Like at our school, where I went to school, we had a drumming instructor and a piping instructor, and we had one big room and one small room. And the big room was for the piping and the drumming, and the wee room was kind of for chanters and pads. And so if they took turn about, and there was one or two occasions where I'd be in the wee room with the teachers like, room's too small to play pipes, or it's going to carry into the next room where they're playing snare drum this week. We'll be on chanter. Like that's like
right.
As a like one off, but you're right. Yeah. I don't know. It's all situational, isn't it? If you can't play your pipes in your flat in the middle of a city because of neighbours or whatever, and it's 9:30 at night, well, that's understandable. But at the same time, I think, if it's consistent, bail.
It gets to the question like, is it worth your time to go to that lesson if you can't play pipes ever or rarely? That would be for me, it would be a problem. Now, this person, Bernie, is going to have to weigh that out, but there can be lots of other things you can do with an in-person instructor, but one of the things that's really vital is being able to play those pipes and getting that chance to get that in-person interaction on the full pipe. So maybe you could balance it if that's interesting to this person. And then, is it better? And then the end of that question, is it better to work on phase 4? Which is something that we're doing at the Dojo in terms of just helping people level up, giving them checkpoints and progress to make sure they're well-rounded students. One doesn't replace the other necessarily, but that would be a good way of continuing to work on making progress in that person's piping. All right, Andrew, you want to give us another?
What are your thoughts on a pipe major being in 2 grade levels? So pipe major of a lower grade band and playing in a band at a higher grade level. What are issues with this? The first thing is, by default, it's illegal. That's the first issue. By default, it's illegal unless you're registered as the playing instructor of the lower grade of the 2 bands. My thoughts on playing in multiple bands is check the rule book. That's thought number 1, especially nowadays. It's like the Wild West out there. But yeah, so what you would do, what this does sometimes happen where there's a playing instructor of a lower grade band, and then they're also playing in the higher grade level. Are there any issues with this?
I personally would have said there's a lot more pros than cons. If you play by the rule book and with the RSPBA, I believe it's if you're registered. Let's take an example where you're registered as the instructor of a school's band and you play with a grade 1 band, but that's all above board, then like great. And I remember like there were times at school, a couple of my instructors, I had all the time in the world for them and I knew they were great players, and they would take our band on and that was it. And a lot of my mates at other schools, their pipe major would do the same thing and then go and play in the grade 1 arena where you're seeing it firsthand. and it's like backing up. They're backing their, what we used to say was backing their banter. So they're giving you all this instruction, X, Y, and Z, and then they're going out and delivering it at a higher level. As like in the first instance, it's inspirational. But second of all,
Ooh, I lost John.
so not have-beens, they're current players at the top level, and then you go to your next band practice and it's I'm getting taught by someone that's played in the grade 1 arena or played in the grade 2 arena or whatever. So I think there's a lot more pros than cons. The biggest issue I found is on the day of the contest having timing clashes, and like, at any level, if you're a leader or a player, you just want the day to be as easy as possible. And if you're the guy that's going, I've got to take my novice juvenile or my grade 4 band on 20 minutes before we play, it's kind of, that's another thing that we have to think about. Will that player play that day, or is there someone that's going to be able to just blow their pipes whilst they're getting ready? But then that affects the whole tuning because they might play it differently. But then you obviously wouldn't adjust to that. But then it's harder to settle the group. I think short term, on the day of a contest, it can be a nightmare, but long term, what it can do for the lower grade players is immense.
Yeah, generally I agree. I think that's the spirit of the instructor rule. I think the spirit of the rule is that when you have a developing band, John, you can tell me if you agree with this, but when you have a developing band, or in the case of Scotland, like in the case of RSPBA, I think they only allow the instructors in the juvenile bands. Is that true or false? Like,
I believe
like
that's
4B, true. I don't think they allow it in 4B. Do they?
Is that right? I could be.
I don't know.
You used to, because
I don't think so.
When I played in the Vale, one of the grade 1 pipers took the grade 4B band on. That might have changed since then. That was about 10 years ago.
So maybe they also allow it in grade 4, but it's not quite as open-ended in the RSPBA, if I'm remembering correctly. And I sometimes get these things wrong. But but the spirit of it is when you have a young developing band, not necessarily young in age, but like when you have a band of beginners, it can be really helpful to have an experienced player kind of lead the band on the field, and it can help hold things together, and it can give the developing players like that nice sort of reference when they're actually performing on the field. That's the basic idea of it, especially if that person's there week to week teaching the band, helping them. That's the idea.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that'd be better. Yeah, but the rules there's a lot of rules, and they could be convoluted or mixed up or muddled up. Yeah. Generally more pros and cons, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it seems like a win-win. Yep. But there can only be one. That's the asterisk with that rule, right? John, if you and me teach a band, both of us aren't going on the field with the band. We'd have to pick one. Can you have 2 instructors on the roster and then only one plays? Is that legal in the RSPBA? Or
yeah, one? They actually changed the rules. So I used to work at George Watson's College, and they changed the rule for that reason. So we had 3 instructors on the roster. Each one of us was assigned a different band, but if you're the principal instructor, you can take on any band. So the juvenile instructor could take on novice A and novice B and juvenile, but the novice juvenile A instructor could only take on novice juvenile A.
Our thoughts on this are the instructor rule sounds good to me, and it seems like a good thing. Yeah, and I agree with you, John. I think the biggest thing are the timing clashes. How would you resolve it if Inverary and your kids' band were scheduled at the exact time? How would you handle that, John?
What that nearly happened when I worked at George Watson's, and the first thing, or what we ended up doing, was we requested to play first. We played 10 minutes before the official start time. And then the other thing we could do is, if this was an ongoing problem, I don't know, we would contact the RSPBA and just explain that there's an issue. And then what would probably happen, it depends on your position. So if you're in if you're taking a band a kid's band that is maybe it's outside of your working hours, it's a volunteer basis thing, that's a discussion between you and your organization. Take Ball Call, for example. It's not a schools band. The juvenile band, it's not a schools band. It's an after-school club, if you like, for all intents and purposes. Whereas I'm teaching at the Glasgow Academy now. As a contract, a working contract. I would probably end up having to say to Stuart, look, there's this big clash. I might have to miss this thing. I'm doing everything I can, but if a really worst case scenario, I would probably have to take the kids band on.
It's your job because it's
the job. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Usually the RSPBA have managed to just about work something out, but it's never ideal. But like I say, that one time where there was a bit of a clash, we asked to play first before the rest of the field, and so long as we were there ready to go in plenty of time, it was allowed.
Cool.
That was a stressful.
Yeah. I would probably go the other way, right? So if I was instructing a band, I would probably go the other way and I would say, oh, there's going to be a timing clash. Maybe I'll call up Carl and be like, hey, Carl, can you tune him up and send him on the field? And then because I'm busy. But yeah, but to John's point, you would plan that ahead of time.
Andrew, you would bail on your students?
That's right.
Says Ben.
Yeah, exactly. I would. You have to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others.
And
100%.
Also, we're teaching bands so that they're self-sufficient, not reliant on a playing instructor.
Maybe not.
That's the ultimate goal, anyway.
I think to John's point, John's actual point was not that he's a hero because he would play with his kids' band before he played with his grade 1 band. That was not John's point.
He's just contractually obligated.
No, John's point was you would work it out and you would do what makes the most sense.
Yeah,
is what you would do. And hopefully starting with the RSPBA or the association finagling things. All right, moving on to the next question because it's a really important question. Do you ever find yourself actually talking to your pipes as if they are alive and listening to you? So I can say, having played in bands with John Dew, the answer is he definitely does. He's always over there talking to his pipes. In stressful situations or before big performances. All right, so hey, come on, guys. This is the big one. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Are we ever talking to our pipes and channeling the vibes of the universe into them, or what are we doing here?
I don't know. For me, my bagpipes talk to me. It's not the other way around, but
the bagpipes just speak to you, Carl. Okay. John, how about you? I was kidding. I've never seen you talk to your pipes, but
it's not been far away. When I've had my moments, I'm giving them a hard talking to, that's for sure. Especially the cane. Oh my goodness, cane. For me, this is going to sound like maybe a wee bit cringy, but if I can get my instrument so in tune with myself on a kind of sixth sense level that it feels like an extension of my body, all of my thoughts and all of my preparation time, the instrument, like you say, Carl, is speaking to me. I'm speaking to it subconsciously. You're going to do this when it gets cold. You're going to do this when it gets warm. And I know that I've got your back. That's okay if you've got my back in that preparation time. It's like almost I don't know how to describe it, sensation.
It's like symbiotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can get to that, then yeah, in the build up to a contest, it's like I know exactly where to strike my bag. I know exactly what pressure to hit the bag. I know exactly where I'm blowing. And yeah, if you can get to that inside the practice room or the home or at home practicing, when it comes to the day of a contest, you're talking yourself through the motions of what you're going to do, how you're going to execute it, and your pipes are actually like embedded in that as well. Like you are literally hugging them when you're waiting to go on, when you're waiting to get tuned, and all of that with the instrument in a kind of intimate way. So nothing verbal, but there's definitely a symbiosis there that happens weeks, if not months, before the competition or performance. And then on the build up, you just get closer and intertwined. That's why it's so hard to get rid of Chanter read, because you're like been through thick and thin with you.
You can tell John is new at answering these questions because every answer he gives is amazing. He's taking these questions and doing way better than we would, Andrew. John, you're hired. What are you doing on Fridays at this time each week?
Fish and chips. That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
All right, let's move on. I'm trying to get out of answering the question. We should move on.
You've done pretty well so far.
Just for those who want to know if I talk to my pipes, the answer is probably, absolutely, I do. Yeah. I don't know about one thing I can tell you for sure is I'm always talking to my computer. If my computer is misbehaving, I'm giving it hell. Like most people would be shocked if they heard some of the things I said to my computer. You can't eject the USB stick right now because there's a file open. That gives me feelings. And like this studio here has no windows and there's no other people in it. It's just me. Yeah, I would say.
The USB thing annoys me as well, especially when there's no device in there.
Yeah.
Or there's no files open. It's like there's just a blank thing on your computer. Something's in use.
No, it's not. But then I don't say it that nicely. All right. Chicago Games 2026. John, you going to that?
Oh, yeah.
I just bought my plane ticket.
Yeah, I
That's
booked my plane ticket definitely at the right time, just before Scotland qualified for the World Cup.
oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
So
that was nuts.
so are you going to be able to stay on, or are you locked in?
I'm pretty locked in because I work at a school. There's no real annual leave. Take your holidays and school holidays. So I managed to
Mm.
get kind of special permission to miss a couple of days of work. And they said just make it the minimal amount of time. So it is the minimal amount of time that I'm taking. Yeah, so it's going to be fairly short trip, but absolutely buzzing. I've been told so many good things about Chicago in
Mm.
general, not just the games and the piping out there, just in general. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
But
that's my
anyway,
hometown. My
the
hometown
Is it?
question.
games when I grew up. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's great games, and it's gotten so much better since that. Well, I haven't been there in 15 years, but yeah,
I'm better since you've left.
they have great things going on.
So the question here is, with Inverary going, is there any buzz that SFU and 78 and the Halifax band and St. Thomas will attend? Do you think any of the EUSPBA bands like Dunedin and Ulster, do you think either of them are going to get upgraded to grade one? I wonder. So there could be a new grade one band. Who knows? Or two.
That'd be cool. I think
But
for a lot of these contests, the more the merrier. Even in Scotland, there's times where we've gone to Helensburgh games and it's been the next best band is a grade three band. Sure, it's a great band, but it would be great to have a couple more grade ones or maybe a couple of grade or a grade two band going, you know what, we're really gonna give it our absolute best to see if a judge can give us a first in front of you or whatever. And I'd say the more the merrier. Forget like all of the North American bands there. Brilliant.
yeah, that would be cool. It would be awesome if SFU came out. It'd be really cool. And it would be good fun too. I don't think that's going to happen though. Why do I get the feeling maybe St. Thomas will come because they've been there traditionally in the past, but I don't think SFU will come. I think
Is
they
it far from
Yeah, that would
them?
be really cool.
it would be
Relatively? Is it?
far. It's a 3 or 4 hour flight from Vancouver to Chicago. It would be a project, right? It would be a pretty big project to get the band there. One of the ways they're getting Inverary there is giving's not the right word, but like arranging revenue opportunities to help afford it. So we're doing the concert there, which is a chance to raise some money towards the project of moving a band all the way there. And then Gavin says there's not enough Mark II Shepherds to have any more grade one bands. I know that's probably the most compelling reason to shrink the roster size of grade one bands is like there's a Mark II shortage. Come on. Although don't tell anyone how many I've collected over here in the yacht. It's very funny. It's very funny. There's, let's just say, certain organizations in the Northeast US area who know that I have these. And they're like, what are you even going to do with them? And I just look at them and I say, nothing. I just like to look at them. I just like to look at them. And I like to know that I have them.
Stockbroker Douglas over here.
Yeah.
Mm.
What's it worth to you? What's it worth?
The Mark II thing's really interesting because yeah, there's arguably the superior chanter, but there's, in my opinion, there's so much more to getting a sound than just the chanter. I know it's like a big help, but Inverary won the worlds 2 years in a row, or two times with the G1 chanter. Other bands have won. Did the City of Dunedin win Grade Two with the G1 chanter, and then Shots have won one with the Mark III. It's
Yeah.
great, but it's not necessarily the reason. I think you spoke about it on one of your podcasts before, Andrew. It's kind of, okay, it's a big margin, but like the reason why, like the top sports athletes take an ice bath, if amateur sports start taking an ice bath after, is that going to make them professional? No. So there's
No.
a lot more
No.
to it than just the
Yeah.
channel. Channel is fantastic for sure. And if you can get your
Yeah.
hands on it, it's great. But
My wife hates the low G on the Mark II. It's very strange, but it's true. The low G on the Mark II it sounds like a giant horn. It's not actually that strong. That interval tends to be really quite tricky on the Mark II. And my wife, who's not a pipe, not like she spends a lot of time around piping, but like any long low G on the Mark II, she's like, yikes. And
it's not like the sweet nail sound or
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, the Mark II, it's with that said though, I remember when we started playing them in the band, there's something about the Mark II is magical. Like the tuning doesn't have to be as accurate or something on the Mark II. There's
Yeah.
like this weird sound envelope thing that happens. And then if you can get the tuning accurate, it does tend to have that sort of, I don't know, it like makes a bubble.
Yeah.
It's like a bubble.
Yeah, it's a lot more kind of like a blend for sure. And I remember when we played G1s, they were great and great projection, nice harmonics, but we did have to be accurate with the tuning. Whereas the Mark II, one or two things out here or there. So I'm just going to plug this in. One or two things out here or there. I remember we played a concert in Cookstown in Northern Ireland, and they were tuning the chanters, and there was one or two chanters that were like howling, like a couple of here and there on everyone's chanters, and it was like, whoa, that's not nice. We struck up and it just disappeared. And I was totally blown away by it. So
Yeah.
you do, yeah, there is something really, when you get it right, there is something magical about it. Even as little as a quartet, you get the blend. That's great.
Yeah. But it's hard to get though. I think I've said this before and I still think it's true. I think the G1 Chanter and the G1 Reed as well, not coincidentally. I think that's probably the best all-round product that there is. If, like you said, John, we won the worlds twice with G1s. So it can be great for advanced players. But then I feel like for beginners and intermediates, all you need is a G1 Reed and a G1 Chanter. You can stick it in and it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to screw it up. Like it's so excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
kind
G1
of
Reed
interesting.
doesn't really vary much either. It's probably as close as you can get to plug in and play.
All right, next question from Rusty. I actually saw Rusty here. Oh, is this a different Rusty? But the next question is, I'm getting a little bit of feedback suddenly. But recent classes have talked about starting a performance with the drones tuned a bit sharper than the chanter. John, you ever do that? Just,
No, not unless I've gone from a really hot room to a really cold room.
or do you mean the other way around?
Well, if you're in a hot room, if your tune room's a hot room, then your drones are going to be at a certain pitch. And when you go to a cold room to then perform, your drones would be sharp to the chanter, would they not?
I don't know.
You need
I think
flat.
what we're talking about here is like in anticipation of the chanter climbing a little bit in pitch, you could set your drones a little bit sharper.
I'll set them sharper, sorry. Ideally not, I wouldn't do that. I would just try and get them in from the start.
Yeah, try and get them in from the start and just go with it.
Yeah.
What about you, Carl?
It depends on how much I've warmed up. If pipes are still warming up, a little sharp, just a little, and then ride that wave where they're in tune for most of the time. But
Yeah,
it,
I think I'm
it's sometimes an
definitely
advanced technique.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely in some situations gonna set the drones a little bit sharper. But like by a little bit sharper, I'm talking about like maybe 200ths of a
Yeah.
hertz or something.
Like it's this when you're moving the drone. It's nothing.
Yeah. So it's just ever so slight so that at the
Yeah.
beginning of a long performance, maybe you're leaning into the blowing a little bit to help keep it from your chanter getting too sharp by the end. And then you're under blowing and trying not to have your
And
chanter
choking.
read choke.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how does one do that is the question. And it's really simple, right? It's just I'm getting my drones locked in at an ever so slightly sharper pitch than I was before. So you can get the pipes, you could think about getting the pipes perfectly in tune. That's what John prefers, right? Just get it perfectly in tune. Tony's never going to get my drones perfectly in tune. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that, Tony. Yes, you are. And you get it really well in tune on a regular basis now. So hats off to you. But I'm going to get my drones perfect. I'm going to get everything locked in and then you just move them down like a tiny bit. You just scooch that outside tenor down the tiniest little bit, the other tenor to match, the bass to match. And then you might sacrifice that totally idyllic tuning for the first minute or so. Maybe, but the average audience member isn't even going to have the slightest idea you did that. But like ever so teeny weeny, but then you're in more control later on in the performance.
I think also it's also worth if those things are creeping into your mind, it's definitely worth practicing that at home. In fact, I can name you a performance where someone did that. Ede Spears, 2018 Silver Chanter, started with the drones shot. By the end, it was unbelievably in tune, just total tone. And I remember seeing him do that, and I was like, he's not chanced that. He's definitely tried that at home,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
twice.
Yep. But that would be how one would do that. And I think that's a good one to end on because it's now 9:00. What are our thoughts? John, thanks for
Yeah.
coming. I think you're hired. I don't think you need me for these anymore. I think we're good. I think I just slowed things down today.